This text that we're going to do in this tuto is the transcript of a listening tuto that we did yesterday. It's about le graffiti in le graffiti in Athens. So I think it's quite useful to have a look more closely at the words, especially since the way that people are speaking changes the way that the words are written on the page. So let's have a look. Excuse me. So toi, en tant qu'artiste, quel regard tu poses sur Athènes vis-à-vis de son histoire inscrite sur les murs? So you, as an artist, that's a nice one. En tant que means as an art, as something. So, you know, you as a politician, you as an artist, you as a woman, you as whatever, that kind of meaning of as. Not every time you use as, but in that situation. Or you might say that you go somewhere as a tourist, en tant que touriste, I'm here as a tourist, that kind of thing. So toi, en tant qu'artiste, quel regard? So what look do you give? Yes, do you put on Athens in relation to its story as written on the walls, les murs? Il y a eu une expansion phénoménale à partir des années 2008 à 2020. Now, we would know this if we saw it written grammatically. It would be il y a. But notice that the il has been dropped. And if you were looking at lyrics to songs, it's the same sort of thing, you know, like we have when we have lyrics like Gunnar and that sort of thing. So this is actually writing it as it's said. So, y a eu, so that's passé composé of avoir. So looking at it like that, you might think, goodness me, what does that mean? But if you put the il y a eu, yeah, y a eu, so had. So there's been, in fact, for us, une expansion phénoménale, so a phenomenal expansion. À partir de, from. That's a really nice way to say from. It's got nothing to do with leaving. It's just from. So I'm free from 1 o'clock. Je suis disponible à partir de 13 heures. So from that time, it could be years, it could be a time, you know, minutes, hours. So 2008 to 2010. Vraiment, je pense qu'Athènes est une des villes d'Europe qui a été le plus plein ces dernières années. Really, I think that Athens is one of the towns in Europe or cities, because there's no separate word for city in French. You can say grande ville if you want to say the city, you know, like Londres, for example, or Paris, but you don't call it a cité. Cité means something that's enclosed, like a medieval city, or you know, or something that's apart, like a Cité d'Europe would be a commercial center or something like that. So it's une des villes, one of the towns of Europe or cities of Europe, which has been the most painted these last years. Last year's, not last year. Last year is l'année dernière. But these last years, or the last year, when we put these or the, that's when we put this in front, just to remind you. But if you were saying last year I did this, you'd be saying l'année dernière. And we carry on with it. Et il y a aussi tout un pont d'expression politique. And there's also a whole selection of political expression. So un pont is like a whole chunk, an expression. I suppose we can think of it as the words it pans out, if you like. It's a similar, must be a relationship with those two words, to pan out, you know, so the whole, another word for that, in gamme. À l'heure actuelle, je pense que c'est à Athènes qu'on voit la présence la plus forte de graffiti politique. So at the moment, à l'heure actuelle, that's a bit more interesting, isn't it, than just saying maintenant? I think that it's in Athens. So in Athens, notice à Athènes for towns or cities, villages. Qu'on voit, when we're talking about us in general, people in general, we're going to use that on, very useful on, isn't it? That we're seeing the presence, the greatest presence. So fort is an adjective that means strong. We can say the strongest presence, but it also has this sort of sense of greatness as well, of political graffiti. Les gens qui habitent Athens aiment le graph. So it's a shortened version of graffiti. Quite often words are shortened in French. So, for example, le restaurant becomes le resto. L'exposition becomes l'expo. Professeur, prof, etc. Okay, so quite a lot of words are shortened. Notice that there's les gens qui habitent. There's no a, habite à Athènes. When we have habite, habiter, we don't need an a in there. So les gens qui habitent Athènes aiment le graphe. C'est un caractéristique de la ville. C'est la vivacité de la ville. So it's a characteristic of the ville. It's the life force, if you like, of the town. Vivacité, you can see that comes from the verb vivre, to live. Yeah, so to life. Vivant, alive. You know, there's lots of words which are come in that family group, that group. C'est des gens qui étaient en désespoir, qui sont sortis s'exprimer dans les rues et sur les murs. So it's been people who are hopeless, feeling a lack of hope. I don't think hopeless is the right word, actually, feeling a lack of hope, who have come out to express themselves in the streets and on the walls. Le graffiti révèle le désespoir et l'espoir en même temps. So graffiti reveals that lack of hope and hope itself at the same time, en même temps. Ça donne l'impression que toute une jeunesse a pris les marqueurs, pris les bombes pour s'exprimer, pour se réapproprier une parole qu'on lui a volée. Ça donne l'impression que, that's a great expression. Yeah, it seems like, well, it gives the impression of. It's nice and simple, isn't it? Yeah, it gives the impression of, it seems like, that toute une jeunesse. Now we would like to sort of like refer to les jeunes, young people, but that we can refer to young people as la jeunesse. We're not talking about a female young person, we're talking about youth. Yeah, so because it's feminine, the all agrees with it. So toute une jeunesse a pris, so and because une jeunesse is a group, that then is like tout le monde or something like that. That then becomes singular, as it would be in English, I think. So yeah, so a whole group of young people have taken marqueur would be some kind of pens, les bombes, any kind of aerosol. So these would be paint, aerosols of paint, to express themselves and to take back the narrative that's been stolen from them. And again, we don't say them, we're using qu'on lui a volé. So on, so has been, it's making it sort of like separate. The on is an unknown person. So, and the lui is referring back to the jeunesse. So has stolen it from them. Vu que c'est une jeunesse qui n'a pas sa place sur le marché du travail, notamment, ben, qu'est-ce qu'elle peut faire dans cette situation-là? So in view of the fact, that's nice and simple, vu que, in view of the fact, it's a youth that hasn't got a place in the work market, le marché du travail, which is what we're sort of like taking note of. That's a nice little adverb there, taking note of. So if you wanted to sort of like underline something and saying, look, in particular this, you'd say notamment. This ben is, rather than saying bien, is just sort of like a way of pronouncing it. Ben, you know, sort of like an interjection. Qu'est-ce qu'elle peut faire dans cette situation-là? So what else can youth do in this situation? Or situation there. Notice there's an accent over there. So it's not le, la, les, la with an accent over it means there. Il y a une espèce de rage spontanée très forte qui s'exprime par les murs. So there's une espèce de is a type of. It almost looks like the word species, doesn't it? Yeah, so a type of rage, spontaneous rage, which is very strong, which is expressing itself on the walls. Et ce qui est intéressant à Athènes, c'est qu'il y a une présence du mouvement anarchiste aussi très fort. And what's also interesting in Athens is that there's a presence of an anarchistic movement, which is also very strong. Excellent. Okay. Is there anything that it's quite a short one today, but I think it's packed with really useful little bits and pieces. And I think maybe the most useful thing is just seeing this and knowing that when you're hearing it, it's going to be ya, ya, yo. Yo sounds very different from il y a eu. Yeah, so don't look out for the il, it's the y really that's going to give you it's the ya that's going to tell you that it's il y a. Bah, écoutez, bah, merci beaucoup pour votre présence et je vous souhaite un très très bon week-end et puis à bientôt alors. Merci, merci. Au revoir. Au revoir.